those goosebumps every time. All around, cause I'm hard to make everything feel fine. Worry about the fun.
The duties of care and Premier. Newcastle United.
I get those goosebumps every time. I need the hype, throw that to the side. I get those goosebumps every time. Yeah, when you're not around, when you throw that to the side. I get those goosebumps every time.
Up the mugs. Yes, sir.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome back. We're back again for a Loaded Mag NUFC Fully Loaded Transfer Show. We are back. It is Wednesday. The sun is shining where I am. We're feeling good, but we're still waiting for this goddamn signing. It still isn't here yet. And people have said on social media, what is there to talk about? We're not signing anyone. Nothing's happened yet. There is still always talking points with Newcastle United to talk about, and we will be talking about them tonight, that is for sure. Daz, Chris, how are you on this fine Wednesday evening, and how is it where you are in the world?
All good at me. I was in the office for a while today. It's sunny out there now. It's been cloudy the last few days, but the sun is kind of starting to break through. Where's Shagger? Shagger was meant to be here by now. There was a promise that this is going to happen. It's just, what is going on, guys? I know Twitter's gone mental. The chat as well. Everyone's getting pissed off now with this no signings business. 2nd of July, preseason on the 7th of July. Something has to happen soon. But we've been saying that for weeks, months, years, even.
Yes.
Yeah, years.
Yeah.
Chris, how are you? Nice shirt.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm all good, mate. I literally came home about 10 minutes ago. Really busy day today. I was shadowing some of my colleagues, and yeah, it was very, very interesting. Very, very interesting day today. So really enjoys it. But I must be honest, boys. I say this all the time, and obviously I always look forward to a fully loaded transfer show, but I'm very intrigued, especially tonight's show, because I would say for the last 48 hours, I've not really had my finger on the pulse. So I've heard a couple of names, I've heard a couple of rumors. Like today, I have literally not looked at social media. I've not even turned it on.
You're in for a treat.
Oh, mate. Yeah, in many ways, when you were describing the meltdown, I must admit I wasn't too upset that I've missed it, only because it can drag you down a little bit, can't it? But I do get everybody's frustration, and I do understand that frustration, because I too share that frustration. But yeah, on a whole, mate, I'm good. It's reasonably cool in Liverpool. I was in Chelmsford Monday, Tuesday. It's Wednesday today, isn't it? Yeah, Monday, Tuesday, I was in Chelmsford, and it was absolutely roasting. So it's still sunny here, but it's got a nice cool breeze. So I'm doing okay. But Pete, how are you doing, mate? You good?
Yeah, not too bad. It's really warm here. They said the temperature was going to drop, and it did this morning, but it's picked back up again, and the sun is beaming down on the room that I'm in right now, and yes, I am feeling it. So I've just had to put the old fan on just to keep things ticking over and keep things cool. But I wish that things would be tipping over at Newcastle United. I hope hoped and wished we'd have been brimming with signings at this point, but it's not quite happened as yet. But it will. And this is the point we need to remember. It will. Signings will come this summer. Good things come to those who wait, and we have waited long enough. They will be here. That is for sure. And we will get into it in just a second. But of course, all the good housekeeping stuff. People are in the chat. You got Sophie B in the chat. She's already telling you what to do. Get those likes up, people. Got 150 plus in the house. Thank you for joining us on Loaded Mag NUFC. Get your comments and questions in for us. Let us know what you're thinking at this point right now about Newcastle United transfers or any other news, because this is transfers and Newcastle United news that we'll discuss tonight. Couple of things to cross off the list, boys. Get them done nice and early. I'm just going to switch tab just for a second. I thought I did, and it wouldn't. Okay, you might have to switch it.
You've got the bug now that I had. Yes, now I can do it.
Yeah.
Over to you, Pete.
Let's cross some things off the list. So let's get this one off the list first and foremost. Jonathan David, talked about him a lot over the weeks and months and maybe years, but it does look like he is eventually going to Juventus. And actually, in addition to this, he is having a medical or will be having a medical very, very soon. So one player we can cross off the list, boys, not coming to Newcastle United. Yeah, we're all good there. We move on. Another player that was linked with us this summer, although had a hefty price tag, is this man. Antoine Semenyo has re-signed in an extension with Bournemouth till 2030, and he will be staying at Bournemouth. And I think Bournemouth may well have used the multi-millions that they've generated through player sales already this summer to be able to give him that bumper contract. He's had a great season. But most importantly, for us as Newcastle fans, he's off the list. He's gone. We don't need to worry about it. I've even deleted them. So they've gone. Some positive news, boys. Some positive news. It happened a few days ago, but we just haven't had the opportunity to talk about it. This man is back running on grass. Yes. Lewis Hall is back in business. And he had a bit to say on Newcastle website. He said, with any injury, especially a long-term one, it's so up in the air. Some people can come back quicker. Some people take a bit longer. It all depends on how everything goes. For me, my aim is to be fit and ready to go for the first game of the season. But to do that, I'd like to have a few preseason games as well beforehand. And I believe the plan is, from what they've suggested, is that he might miss the first couple of games, but will then play the back end of preseason. Positive news, boys. He was sorely missed, although Tino Livramento was excellent left back. He had a absolutely superb season up until that injury. So glad to see him back running and back joining the squad, hopefully for preseason next week, Daz.
Keep it short. Absolutely delighted he's back. We need him, and he's slapped back in there at left back and moved Tino to right back. And the old cliche, sure, he's like a new signing.
God.
Don't do that. Not a new signing. Not like a new signing. He was a new signing last summer after we'd already had him for a year. So don't do that again, as we can't do that for a second year. We are
reaction show.
Yeah. Whatever works, whatever makes you smile. But Chris, happy to have namesake back in the squad, ready for the season.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. I mean, I remember us talking about him midway through the season before he got his injury, and I think we all agreed actually he was on his way to being player of the season. I thought he was absolutely outstanding. I thought he was absolutely brilliant. He was one of the shining lights in the early part of the season for us, because if you remember, we weren't playing very well, but Lewis Hall was absolutely outstanding. Even when the results started turning a bit sour as well after we'd made a good start. It was weird at the start of last season, wasn't it? Because we were playing awful and we were winning. Then we were playing really well and we weren't winning. But Lewis Hall was consistently very, very good. And yeah, it was a big loss. Huge loss, for him to be out. But Tino did an admirable job at left back. But it will be great to get Tino back on that right hand side and have Lewis Hall there. I genuinely, boys, and I'm sure you'll agree, we've got two of the most exciting wing backs in the league. That's not under doubt for me. So yeah, absolutely made up to have him back, mate. I think he's an excellent player.
Absolutely. And Kaluja just put in the chat, I love your positivity, Pete, but I don't understand where you get it from. Fair play. Look, we are going to sign players. Please. We need someone to be positive. I don't mind being that guy. What's funny? Whenever we get linked with a player, I get hammered for being excited about the thought of actually this signing the player. And it's like, you always say they're a good player. Well, yeah, because they are. If they were shit, I tell you they were shit. So when we were linked with Noni Madueke, I wasn't happy. Because he's shit, in my opinion. But, we are 9 times out of 10, we are linked with good players because we do have a good scouting network. And, it's worked. If you look at the last 4 years. Sorry, that's gone.
No, I was going to say I enjoyed the logic that people come back to you with of why that person won't be signing for Newcastle, and that it goes on a completely different tangent.
It's
But,
so negative. I do. You know, I get excited when I see a link because I think, oh, they're a good player. Like, you know, we all do it. When a player's linked with Newcastle, the first thing you do is vision how they could fit into that team, and visually, you kind of like start to think about, oh, what they normally do for their club if they did that for us and how great it would be. And then I read the comments like Dad says, and it's just like, you know, that Roy Hodgson moment that when you see his image, he's just like, oh.
It's like,
It's just like, I'm excited. And, oh, God. I read the comments. But look, it's all good. It's all good. Not everyone has the same opinion, and it is what it is. It's why we love talking about Newcastle United. But look, let's get into it. And I can see a few Forest fans in the chat. And I can see a few angry Newcastle fans, one or two very frustrated about Forest, in particular Wolfie, who's put a very interesting couple of videos out about Newcastle and Newcastle fans in his latest videos. And he's definitely got a bee in his bonnet. And he might have a bee in his bonnet because, in my opinion, I think he's worried about seeing this next season. I think he's worried about this. So, like, when people are getting mad at Wolfie in his videos about Newcastle fans and is going mad for Anthony Elanga, don't take it personally. He just doesn't want to see this. He doesn't want to see it. And he feels like it could be a potential and it could potentially happen. But we know we had the bid rejected, David Ornstein. What's really got Forest fans their pants in a twist is this. So our very own Will Asula was asked the question on his Snapchat about being agent Asula. And it's because of this. He's spending a lot of time with this certain young fellow, this certain 23-year-old Swedish international who, by anyone's notion, seems to be very interested in Newcastle United players this summer. If it's not Isak, it's Asula. It's not Asula, it's Gordon. If it's not Gordon, it's Willock. And if it's not Willock, it's whoever else he can get his hands on to speak to that wears the famous black.
He's not talking to Murphy. He's not talking to Murphy, though, is he?
Not yet. Or not that we don't know.
Murphy got married as well. So he's busy.
That's true. And I think he must be on some form of honeymoon, enjoying himself. Yeah. So maybe that's why, Dash. Great point. Great point. But, I just want to, before we get into sort of mini updates on Elanga, because that's been a mini update, just what are your thoughts on all of this? Like with him, we've talked about it before, but I have to say, boys, it keeps happening. He keeps interacting with Newcastle players. He's spending a lot of time with Newcastle players. This hasn't happened before. This is not, he's friends with them, so he spends a lot of time with them. This is not normal. Like, he doesn't normally spend or interact with Newcastle players as often as he has. So is there something in it? Are Forest fans right to be angry? Because they are. They're worried. They're scared right now. Wolfie being the head of the table, the captain crybaby right now. He's worried about losing his star boy. What do we think about this whole situation, boys? Like, Daz, I'll start with you.
Well, do we get really annoyed with Anthony Gordon hanging out with Curtis Jones? No, couldn't care less. Who he hangs out with, it's his own life. It's his downtime once he does it on the pitch for us. At the same time, it is a bit unusual that he's been in so much interaction with the Newcastle players. But again, him and the Newcastle players are free to interact with whoever they want to. You can see from a Forest point of view why they might be a bit pissed off about that, all right? Because there's so much links with us and Elanga. You don't see him hanging out with Aston Villa players as much, or anyone else that might be linked to him as well. But interesting. It's might be factored that it looks like that he'd be open to the idea of going to Newcastle by the looks of it. Not like another certain Brazilian who headed to Chelsea. So he seems like he's all on for it. But look, we have to meet somewhere in the middle with Forest's valuation as well and get a deal done. It just won't happen because they're palling up with each other. I don't know if it'll ever come down to a situation that he needs to hand in a transfer request to make it happen. I don't think it'll go that far, but we just need to get the deal done. That's what we're here for, after all.
Absolutely. Chris, your thoughts on this? This interaction with Newcastle United players that Anthony Elanga's had, and the thoughts of maybe Forest fans being worried about the fact that they're going to lose their star player, and also from a Newcastle perspective, like what's your thoughts about him coming in? I know we've talked about it before, but this situation with Elanga just keeps running on, so it's important that we sort of revisit where our stance is at this point on Anthony Elanga.
Yeah, it's a funny one, this, because I can kind of see both sides. So I totally see where Daz is coming from. In terms of players who are entitled to hang around with who they want. They can go and see who they want. They can go and eat with who they want. They can spend leisurely time with who they want. But let's not forget, these players are in the the eye of the media. And to me, if I was a Forest fan, I wouldn't be happy. I'll be honest, I wouldn't. Because to me, this is Anthony Elanga basically dangling a carrot saying, come and get me. Because that's what it feels like to me. It feels like he's almost saying, without saying it, oh, I'd love to go and spend even more time with Willa Sula. I'd love to join Newcastle, because the players aren't stupid. They know what's being spoken about. They know what's out in the media. And you would think that someone from Forest would have said to him, do us a favour, by all means, hang around with who you want, but try not posting stuff on social media, with players from other clubs that you're linked with, because we know, as it's been reported, and we know anyway because we've seen it as well, that Anthony Gordon is really close friends with Curtis Jones. If I saw Anthony Gordon on Instagram doing this a silly dance with Curtis Jones, I'd be fuming over it. I know I would, because all my Liverpool mates would be going, oh, he wants to come, he's hanging around with Curtis Jones. And obviously him and Curtis Jones are close friends. That's absolutely fine. And who he spends his free time with is entirely his choice. But it as I say, it feels like it's golden. It's like, boys, and another example, it's like Alexander Isak, going round to Alexis McAllister's house and, having a little dance in the living room. We'd all be losing our shit right now. We would all be going mental, thinking, what's he doing? Why is he doing that? He shouldn't be doing that. Now, Alexander Isak's free to speak, see, do whatever with who he wants. But to post something like that on social media, knowing that Liverpool are very, very keen on Alexander Isak, it's just not, I don't know, it doesn't sit right with me. So I get why the likes of Wolfie and other Forest fans are upset by it. I do. Do I think it means anything? Quite possibly. Because I almost feel it's almost like putting in a transfer request without putting one in, because he's basically saying, I enjoy Willa Sula's company, or wouldn't it be great if I could go and join Willa Sula at Newcastle? That's what it feels like to me, because they're putting it in the public domain. They're putting it there so everybody can see it, and that's what makes me think it's a little bit off. So I do have sympathy with Forest fans, but at the same time, I'm very, very relaxed over what happens. It's like João Pedro. I was gutted when initially it was found out that he was going to Chelsea, but like now it's just completely gone. Don't care. I only want players who want to play for Newcastle United. And if Anthony Elanga wants to come to Newcastle United, brilliant. But we're going to have to pay a significant fee to get him out. And if we're willing to do that, great. If we're not willing to do it, then we're not going to get him, because Forest are entitled to ask for what they want for him. So we will have to see. But yeah, I think it's a bit triggering, is what I would say, and I do get why there's a bit of a furore around it.
Yeah, I understand that. I understand that, but it's really interesting, because you talked about Anthony Elanga and it being put on social media, and this is the thing. Like, Forest fans have almost come for Newcastle fans because we've reacted to it, and it's like, hold on a second, you haven't looked at your own player. Like, you made the point, and I think it's a really valid point. Like Alexander Isak probably does hang around with other footballers outside of his own time, but he just doesn't post it, and he doesn't post it because he is considerate of his fan base. I don't think Anthony Elanga has been considerate of his fan base. One, by constantly commenting on players of the club he's heavily linked with on a daily basis, and then
DM them.
Pictures. Yeah,
if you want to speak to them, DM them. No one
that doesn't work. Don't get Nick Pope to show you how to do that, though.
No, true,
and that's also true. Very, very, very valid point, Daz. But you're right. That it can be done in separate means. And yes, they're your mates. You should be able to do what you want. But I think on top of that, also, you're responsible for the club that you're playing for, and the fans. As a footballer, your fans are going to see every comment you have. They've probably got notifications on for every comment you put on or every post you put out. So they are going to see it, and he would know that, So I don't think Forest fans have looked at their own player on this and looked and gone, hold on, well, like, why? Because if it's once or twice, lads, I think most fans would have let it slide. But the fact that it's been continuous for the last month now of constant comments, videos, pictures, anything, and it's been constantly with Newcastle players and interactions, it just feels a little bit weird. And maybe there is something in it, I don't know. But the one thing that I think Forest fans are wrong on, right, and we might have different opinions on this, I think the one thing that Forest fans are wrong on is this obsession with Newcastle are desperate for Anthony Elanga. You ask most Newcastle fans in the fan base, it is absolutely split. There are probably more Newcastle fans in the fan base that are not bothered about the fact whether Elanga comes or not than they are absolutely desperate for him to come in. And I've said that to a few Forest fans a couple of times, and the Forest fans go, no, you guys want him. And it's almost like they expect us to be desperate for him, when the reality is it's very different. That's not to say Elanga's not a good player. We've mentioned it before. I like Elanga. I think he's a good player. But again, I think most Newcastle fans have woke up to the reality that he is not worth 60 million. He is not worth 60 million in anybody's eyes. Forest might have him as a value of 60, 65 million. He ain't worth that. And that's fine. Because if we put another bid in, and we're rumoured to put another bid in, if we put another bid in and it doesn't get accepted, that's fine. Forest will be happy because they keep him. We'll be happy because we're not overpaying, and we'll move on. Everybody's happy, but there seems to be a lot of finger pointing from Forest fans saying, "Oh, you're desperate for him," and then it gets a little bit where Wolfie's video today, where he's saying, he starts pointing the finger at Newcastle fans because we haven't made a signing this summer and this, that, and the other, and it doesn't need to go that far. It doesn't need to be pointed the finger at in terms of Newcastle. Like, you can be angry that your player's behaving in that way, and you can be frustrated because you might lose him. But look, the reality is that Newcastle fans, in the most part, are not really that arsed either way, whether he comes or not. There's not a desperation for him soon. And then, look, you got NF2000 saying, Isak will be gone soon. That's like the natural. That's the natural reaction. It's like the pettiness. You don't like the fact that you could lose him, and so therefore you start calling out Newcastle players. Don't need to do it.
Sorry, Daz. Can I just make a point here? I've seen a couple of comments here. So, Geordie Tune for Life, Chris. I wouldn't, if it was his mate. Come on, he's entitled to go and have a good time with me. He absolutely is. He absolutely is. I've got no question.
It's another one, Chris. It's not going out in North Korea, Chris.
No, he's absolutely got it. And NFFC says, sorry, Chris, I think it's an insanely insecure point of view. Mate, like, I do get it. I understand it. I'm actually defending Forest fans here. I'm saying if it was from a Newcastle point of view, I wouldn't like it. I wouldn't, because Anthony Elanga knows that he's been linked with Newcastle. He knows full well, because he knows a bid's gone in. And for me, if I was, part of the media team, if I was in the PR team at Newcastle United, and Liverpool put a bid in for Isak this week of 100 million, low ball bids, 100 million, and then I saw next week Alexander Isak out for the meal with Virgil van Dijk, Mo Salah, sitting there like this, I wouldn't like it. I wouldn't like it because I think you've purposely. I'm not saying that he can't do it. Feel free, go and do it. But he's actively approved the fact that Will Asula's put it on Instagram. Because if it was my mate, say I'm a professional footballer, my mate, I go to his favourite mate. Yeah, let's do the video. Don't put it online because it'll just cause a load of chaos. It'll cause a load of bother. It's almost as if he's gone, yeah, go on, post it. Like we've already seen like the picture when he was playing tennis. And he was in a Bournemouth shirt, and his opponent was in a Newcastle shirt. Yeah, it's a bit loose. But again, it's another little. Oh look, Newcastle shirt.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It all just seems staged, is what I would say. It feels staged. He can do what he wants. I've got no problem with that. But
there's another side to this that, like, you remember Paqueta and Bruno were like, well, all the time that they were spinning together. He was up in Newcastle, and it looked like they were both in the Newcastle shirts at one stage as well. Remember that? It was a blurry picture, but you can see
we all went mad. We all went mad. We go,
he's coming. It's a done. It's a done thing. But then, like, of course, he was checking out schools and everything, wasn't he?
Well,
doing his job.
Good evening, Sean. NF2000. His head's gone. He's saying Isak wants to win more than the Caramel Cup. Like, come on, man. Your head's gone, man.
I know. But was I the insecure one? What's going on here? Why are we talking about Isak?
It wasn't even an Isak conversation. It was an Elanga conversation. And your head's gone. Come on, man. Your head's on Mars right now. Just relax. You're probably going to keep your player. We'll go and sign someone else, and we're good. Everyone's happy. Just don't worry. Don't worry.
And just one final thing as well, Geordie Tune for Life. Sorry, I'm not purposely coming at you here, Geordie Tune for Life, but the young lads, they don't think like mature men. Their lifestyle, they lead completely different lives. I completely agree, and they are only Will Asula's like 19, 20, and Elanga's 23. Totally get that, but they're not normal young kids. They have agents, they have people who are recommending things to them. They have, like the owners, the managers, the coaches. Sutton, I think personally, internally, will have been said to him at Forest, "Go, mate, do us a favour. Can you stop posting stuff? Because all it's doing is it's like throwing petrol on fire. That's all it's doing, and it's just creating. Well, it's making people like Wolfie react the way they are because he's getting really irritated by it, and it's because of what's coming out in the media. That's what it is.
Definitely. There's no playoff round, and his head's gone. He's not on Mars now. He's somewhere in the realms of the Jupiter, Saturn, wherever. He's somewhere there, mate. There's no playoff round. We're straight in the Champions League. Come on.
Take the 52.5 million.
By the way, can you imagine? Can you imagine if we end up signing him for like 50 million? Forest fans are going to melt. They're going to absolutely melt because they would have been wanting 60, 65. If we end up getting him for anything less than that, then it's happy days. It's happy days. But look, let's wait and see. But the little bits of information came out yesterday as part of Craig Hope's piece, and he said we remain attentive to the potential deal for Anthony Elanga, despite the fact that their opening offer of 45 million was dismissed. Elanga is in the process of leaving agent CAA, who are representative of a couple of other people. So could it be that, the change of agent sways things, moves things forward? Who knows? We don't know for sure. But what we do know, boys, is there is another player apparently at the table. Aston Villa have reported to show their interest in Anthony Elanga as well. Will that potentially throw a spanner in the works, or is that something that Newcastle don't necessarily need to worry about in the pursuit of Anthony Elanga if we do in fact put another bid in? Does that change things, boys, with Aston Villa potentially at the table? There are Villa fans and circles saying they're not actually interested, but it has been the noise the last sort of 24 hours or so. What are your thoughts on that?
I'm not so sure of Villa's interest yet. I know I've seen them linked to Fernand Torres as well, who, as we said, Barca have so many wingers they don't know what to do with. And he's always one that gets linked but never actually wants to move kind of back from Spain again, back to the UK. So I don't know. believe the Villa interest yet, and it is not as much a worry from our point of view of a Villa coming in who are not in the Champions League, over at Chelsea who can offer massive wages and are also in the Champions League. So I'm not too worried about Villa. I think we can, and he's as we said, he's twerking for us. So it was a straight choice. I think he chose us.
Yeah, you the similar mindset, Chris. Similar thoughts with regards to that situation with Elanga and potential interest from Aston Villa.
Do you know what, you've teed me up nicely here, Pete? Because I was going to respond earlier to what you were saying about Elanga, and I feel exactly the same way. And I don't mean any disrespect towards Elanga. I think Elanga's a good player, but he's not in my force, and this is only my opinion. He's not someone who I'm desperate to get. If we signed Anthony Elanga tomorrow, I'd be happy because we need a new right winger, and I think he's an upgrade on Jacob Murphy. I think that isn't under dispute for me. Did you hear that?
Ice cream man?
Yeah. Yeah.
Who's ordering ice cream over?
I should be ordering ice cream. I got one the other day, but I won't get one now. But
it's Elanga and Asula driving it.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, beeping the horn. No, but I'm not praying I wake up one day and hoping that we sign Anthony Elanga. Like, as I say, I'm not dissing him or saying that he's not a good player. He is. But I think Newcastle will have a figure in mind. And even if Villa come in and they beat us by 5 million, 10 million, 20 million, whatever it is, I won't look back and think, oh, I should have paid the extra few quid to get him. I think Anthony Elanga, for me, is one of those players where you go in with a figure and you go, that's a fair figure. It's a bit like with João Pedro. I mean, obviously, João Pedro ended up saying he wanted to go to Chelsea. But let's say João Pedro was desperate to join Newcastle. Let's say he was. I know he wasn't, but let's say he was. And then Brighton said, Chelsea have bid 70 million. You're going to have to bid 70 million. Like, we wouldn't do it. We just wouldn't do it because we've set limits for players. And for me, Anthony Elanga isn't a Tonali, Bruno, and Isak, where you go, do you know what, let's pay a bit more. We've got to get him in. I don't feel that way about Anthony Elanga. So, you know, if we sign him, great. And I'll back him. I'll get behind him 110%. But if we move on from him, I'm not going to lose any sleep over it. Maybe Will Asula might, but I won't.
Yeah. Well, there's a little bit of an update with regards to Elanga, just as we go. I think, Daz, you just put it on the private chat as well. I have got the pictures here, and it says, basically with Anthony Elanga, it says that Newcastle remain in dialogue with Nottingham Forest for Anthony Elanga, who is understood to be keen on the move. Now, that's interesting because we've been told by Wolfie for the last 2 weeks that Anthony Elanga doesn't want to move to Newcastle United. Well, certainly the videos and interaction made us think that way. But now we're hearing from reports that he is keen on the move to Newcastle. And in addition to that, you know, it does talk about valuations on both potential deals, and it is referring to James Trafford as well. We can come back to that a little bit later. It's not as simple as being rejected, says one source. The suggestion that ongoing communication on those deals, in particular Anthony Elanga, is a sign that something can be done. Okay, so that's the words coming from Mark Douglas of the iPaper there. So the other thing that he does mention in there that's quite telling, boys, is that he makes it clear that Eddie Howe is now in charge of sorting transfers. He makes it clear that he is now in the driving seat moving forward. And he does make reference, people in the chat that are watching as well, he does make reference that when Eddie Howe was last in charge of those transfers, Sandro Tonali walked through the door. So hopefully that could be the catalyst to kick on this transfer window. Maybe could it be the catalyst to secure the deal for Anthony Elanga? So just your thoughts on those two bits. Anthony Elanga keen on the move. Dialogue still happening with Nottingham Forest continually, not stop start, continually makes us feel, and certainly Mark Douglas writing the piece, that that a deal is there to be done.
As you were, I think it sums it up. But yeah, you got a bit more than that. It looks like we and coming onto the show and for the last while, we know we haven't walked away from those deals. It's why we have a little bid beside the picture of the two players in question, Trafford and Elanga. It is looking like those deals will get done if we can find that. I think the Trafford one, look at finishing the show the last day, we thought we were coming back on again pretty soon for that. That's why we kind of held off on a show where I was waiting for that news to break. But they're not there yet, as Keith Downey alluded to in his video. Even though we got the "Here we go" from Fabrizio Romano, or the "Soon here we go." Sorry, soon here we go. I hope we're not still here this time next week to talk about the same thing, boys.
Yeah.
Is that your mindset, Chris?
Yeah, I think. Do you know what? I get that negotiations are still ongoing. My biggest frustration is the fact that I feel like this should have been concluded sooner, and I wish that somebody, whoever that may be, in the Newcastle hierarchy, who's got the final decision or is in charge, or as a collective even, that they just go, right, this is the figure we're going to. If we're not going to get that deal done, let's just move on. Because what I don't want to do is this to drag on and on and on and on, and then get to the point where we're like, come on, we really need some signings here. I am disappointed by how it's panned out so far, but as we have had in the past, not the recent past, but in the past, where we've been desperate for deals to go through, and then all of a sudden, like buses, 3 come at once, and then you look back and you go, do you know what? And maybe we'll find ourselves saying that, boys. If we sign 3-4 really, really top players, we'll end up going, do you know what? It was worth the wait. It was worth the wait because we've got the right players in. I'm still convinced we're going to sign players, and from the looks of things, it looks like Trafford and Elanga are probably the most likely. But I'm the only one I would say I'm wholly sure on is Trafford's. I think we'll definitely get that Trafford deal done. The Elanga one, I'm still on the fence over it a little bit. I'm still not 100% sure. I'm still not 100% sure that the Elanga deal goes through because of the fee that I think Forest will want for him. That's the thing that I think may stop it. But we'll see. We will see. And the fact that we're going after 2 players who it's alleged are both incredibly keen to come is great. And that's the way it should be. We should only be going for players who want to come.
Would you take Kubo, Chris?
Yeah, I would take Kubo. But I just don't think the sun shines out his backside like most people do. I think he's a good player. I just don't think he's the best thing since sliced bread. I think the way some fans carry on about Kubo, it's like it's Lamine Yamal reincarnated. I just don't. I think he's a good player, and if we signed him, yeah, he seems to have a lot of really good qualities. But I don't see the obsession with him at all. And I think what I would be asking people who keep mentioning Kubo is, why has Kubo been linked with a transfer for the last 2 or 3 years and nobody's put the money down for him? Because allegedly he's available for 30 million. So why is everybody not signing him?
Yeah. Pete, I have a question for you. Right, I think you like this question.
4 million.
Comes from Andy Ford. Why is Asula so keen on Elanga to join anyway? If he did, he'd be pushing Asula further down the pecking order. That's a fair enough point.
It is a fair enough point. But look, players want to play with good players. And Anthony Elanga, for all we go on about his price tag, he is a good player. And particularly if they're players that they get on with and that they like. Players like to be around players that they feel comfortable with and that they get on with. And it's very clear that Elanga is good friends with Alexander Isak. Alexander Isak's good friends with Asula. That's how the connection's been made. And they all seem to get on really, really well. Because I imagine these boys have all been in and around the same circles at some point, being professional footballers. They've bumped into each other either on holiday or being in the same places together when they're out socializing. It goes beyond what we see on the football pitch, because ultimately it is a team game and players will know that they need as best quality a player as possible if they want to be successful. And so that's why it'll be the case. They would have interacted all summer and they would have had a conversation. I remember something similar around when Paul Pogba was signed for Man United, and he spent the whole summer with Romelu Lukaku in the States, and they were spending a lot of time together, and it was like they were really good friends, spending a lot of time together, and all of a sudden they rocked up together at Manchester United. So it happens. It happens. You would have seen last summer Trent Alexander-Arnold spending pretty much a huge chunk of the summer after the Euros with a certain Jude Bellingham, and then lo and behold, they rock up together at Real Madrid. Like it happens. It does. Players want to be around players that they like and they get on with. It's just the reality. They won't see it as pushing out in the positions. Will Asula, by the way, as much as like for me, I think he needs a loan. Although I think he's been excellent in the Euros, I just don't think he'll get the sort of minutes that Anthony Gordon commanded when he come off a really good Euros, because you've got Alexander Isak up front, and it's always going to be difficult for him. But Will Asula will be very confident in his abilities. He comes across as a very confident lad, and he'll be confident in his abilities as well. And he'll be going more so to Andy's point. He'll probably be thinking more so, I'm good enough to be starting and playing alongside Anthony Elanga, not instead of, or him playing instead of me. He'll be thinking, if I keep putting performances in, I can be starting alongside him. And that will probably be the mentality, not what the question that you've asked. But I'm glad you asked it, because it is a good question, because some people do think
that might be a good short as well. We can clip that up. There we go. Let's move on.
Yeah.
Lots to talk about, guys. Lots to talk about with regards to Newcastle United. Just a really quick one here, which I thought was quite interesting, and we'll just have quick opinions on this before we move on, because we've got other important potential transfers to talk about. He's doing well. He's doing well. Very well.
Missed our chance there, big time.
Yeah, absolutely. Maybe we'll get him on a free once he's finished his stint in Saudi in a year or two. Maybe. There was a piece out by Scott Wilson saying that not only that they'd made progress on James Trafford, but more importantly, more recently, is that Nick Pope is keen to remain at Newcastle United and fight for his future, even if James Trafford signs. And actually, another piece was written as well saying Leeds, who were heavily linked with him at one point, now won't be signing him and have stepped away from the deal because they believe that they've been told that he doesn't want to move and he wants to stay at Newcastle United. Happy with that, boys? Or were you expecting him to be moved on at some point in the summer? Just quick words on that before we get to the good stuff.
No, happy that we will keep Popey, and like even in Keith Downey's video, I assume that Trafford comes in, he's number one, but he's pointing towards Popey staying number one, and it's for Trafford to dislodge him from that spot. I'm not so sure on that, but I know I think we have a really sound goalkeeping department. We have a lot in the goalkeeping department we get rid of as well, but we're solid there going forward, and no worries at all on that front. See you soon, Shagger, as Popey meant to DM to James Trafford.
Chris, do you think Trafford comes straight in as number one, when he signs, or do you think Nick Pope will hold on to that mantle, as Daz mentioned, and Trafford has to kind of pry it away from him? How do you see that one working out?
Yeah, so it's an interesting one. My personal view is, and my personal hope is that James Trafford starts the season as number one. I'll be honest, I want to see him get straight in there. But it doesn't surprise me that Eddie Howe shows the loyalty to Nick Pope, because, in fairness, I was one of Nick Pope's biggest critics, and the back end of the season, he was really, really good, really good. So maybe it is a case of staying with Nick Pope, having James Trafford as the number two, and him being on his toes, pushing Nick Pope, and then if and when James Trafford gets his opportunity, it's then up to him to try and keep the jersey. Me personally, as I say, I would start James Trafford if we sign James Trafford. He would be my number one for the start of the season, because I just think he transforms the way we play. But I wouldn't have a real massive problem with Nick Pope starting the season at all. And I think keeping hold of Nick Pope would be one of the best number twos in the Premier League if James Trafford is the number one and we manage to keep hold of Nick Pope. I think there's two really good options for us in the goalkeeping department. So I've got no problem with keeping Nick Pope. The only issue is the fact that Nick Pope's in the last year of his contract. Now, if James Trafford comes in as number one, Nick Pope is going to be sitting on the bench, and then we potentially lose Nick Pope for nothing at the end of the season, unless we sign him to a new deal. Let's be honest, boys. I think it's fair to say, it sounds harsh, Nick Pope's next move is a downward step from Newcastle United, wherever he goes. He's not going to make an upward step. It will be a downward step. Even if he was to join a Man City or an Arsenal, he'd be joining as a number two, number three. That's the reality. Otherwise, if he wanted to be a number one, he's going to have to join a club further down the league. And I think Nick Pope probably knows that deep down as well. So he's probably thinking, I'm settled, my family's settled, I'll still get cup games. Why wouldn't I stay? And hopefully that's the attitude he has, because like I say, if he stayed as number two long term, I'd be happy with that.
Yeah, for me, I'd be putting James Trafford in as number one. I'd be quite ruthless in that. I'd be putting him straight in. You don't buy a goalkeeper of his ability and have him on the bench. But the key is you want him in for pre-season so you can justify that move. Yeah. So it needs to happen quite quickly. But just wanted to have a quick chat on that. We talked about Craig Hope's piece yesterday that talked about a little bit of Elanga and talked about one or two other players as well. One in particular is this man, Leonardo Balerdi, centre-back at Olympique Marseille. Yes, well-timed with the comment there. Spot on. Craig Hope writes that Newcastle are exploring a move for Marseille centre-back Leonardo Balerdi, 26-year-old Argentinian international, impressing under Roberto De Zerbi, has drawn inquiries from Juventus in recent weeks, having worked with their manager previously. However, with Juventus having to juggle their targets, Newcastle have sensed an opportunity in the window and are seeing if a deal can be struck around 35 million. There was a report from Juventus from their point of view, remains a top defensive target. They actually had him as being valued at 25 million euros, which is like around just over 20 million. So it's even cheaper than on this report in Italy in comparison to what Craig Hope's written, which is absolutely crazy. Now, he is, as we said, an Argentinian international. Now, I just have to say one thing, boys, before I get your opinions on Leonardo Balerdi, is that this deal or potential deal, when the report came out last night, was met with a number of different posts on social media around Leonardo Balerdi and Marseille fans going on hunger strike until he was sold. Now, this is going back to 2023, not long after he'd been at the club. And at this point, I think he was going through a difficult spell. People have took that as, oh, this is a bad deal, he shouldn't be signed. People need to be absolutely convinced on this, that he has been absolutely superb for them since that moment. And actually, the feeling amongst Olympique Marseille fans is absolutely very, very different now. And, you know, a lot of people jumping on that. I thought it was quite harsh on the player, because it was only 3-4 years ago that we had that same opinion of Joe Linton. And look what Joe Linton's done for Newcastle United since. You know, he was the one player when the takeover happened that people wanted out the door. Now, people are desperate for him to see out his career at Newcastle United. Players change. They're not always the same. They always go through bad moments, but they can come out of them. So to see that, I thought it was quite poor for Newcastle fans to jump on it. Of course, it's an old report. It says 2023 on it. It's really clear. But that's not to say that that's the player that we're linked with now. We are absolutely linked with a very, very different player. But Leonardo Balerdi, Argentinian international. Daz, Chris, what are your thoughts on this potential link?
Yeah, look, until the report came out about 95% of the Newcastle fan base, I'm sure, didn't know anything about him. But yeah, I did a YouTube search on him, and look, he looks good in the videos. Like everyone does in the videos, but he's great in the tackle. He good in the box as well to get his head in the ball from corners and that. He doesn't jump off the page for me, to tell you the truth. He looks solid, of course, but I'm not sure he wouldn't get forward as much as Shar from looking at his heat map from last year as well. And 26, and I think maybe we're going to have to start moving into that category of player or age of player as well, because all the players 23 younger, they're all going for crazy prices, and we can't for the amount of players we want to bring in. I don't think we're going to be able to do that, so we're going to have to mix it up a bit. I don't think he'd be my first choice at all for centre back. But for that price, if that 25 million euro price is a great price for him there, if that was the case. But yeah, 35 million, I presume, pounds is what the figure I was seeing quoted. I don't know. It looks good in the video, but I haven't seen him play a full match, right? So I can't really comment on him. I think we need someone of Lee's level as well to give us a real in-depth analysis of him if we were to go down that route.
Yeah, I'm
and he's Argentinian. He's Argentinian. How's that going to mix with the Brazilian boys? Anytime they face an Argentinian lad, that happens. So I don't know.
War will commence. But Chris, you know, I think you mentioned when it first came out that you'd not known too much about the player. You've been able to have a look a little bit and see what he's like. I mean, it's a different link. It's a left field link, not one that I think anyone expected. Well, what do you make of that?
Yeah, so similar to Daz, I can't proclaim to know a lot about him because I don't, even though he's an Argentinian international, which surprised me because then I thought, well, how do I not know about this player? Because obviously, you know, not that I'm an avid international watcher of games and stuff, but you tend to know about the big internationals, don't you? You know, especially coming from a country like Argentina, you tend to have a vague understanding. Even like, you know, playing FIFA and stuff, I just never came across him. So my knowledge of him is incredibly limited. And I'll be honest, Daz, I'm just going to nick the chat 1 second. That was my first thought when I saw the link. I thought, oh, when are we going to get Leon? Because I'm sure Lee's probably got far more insight than what I have. But obviously, I've done the usual. I've done the Dennis Wise. I've got myself on YouTube. I've had a little look at him, and he does strike me as someone who's quite aggressive, somebody you know, who's not shy in the tackle. Although the worrying thing was when they did slows of the tackles, quite often he wasn't getting the ball, so that was a bit of a concern. But yeah, I mean, it is left field. So he's 26 years old, isn't he? And it was a bit that surprised me a bit. Although you know, the fact that maybe he's in the middle of his career rather than at the start of his career. Maybe that means you'll get him for a more reasonable price. I don't know. The 25 million euros, that sounds fair. And you know, we can't just go around buying, you know, 21, 22, 23-year-olds, paying top dollar for them. We will need some experienced heads in there as well, or players who've been around the block a little bit. So the signing kind of makes sense. Obviously, he's significantly younger than Fabian Schär. But yeah, I mean, he looked all right on the eye. Yeah, I didn't have any major concerns, but then I'm also very conscious that when you look on YouTube, they're not going to show you all the bad bits as well. But I thought the thing that concerned me was the good bits, and I was a bit like, didn't get the ball, didn't quite touch the ball there. You know, it felt like he was making a lot of last gasp tackles. That's how it felt. I don't know, but again, I say this every show. If Eddie Howe and the recruitment team want him, who am I to knock? Because you know, we've made very few, if any, howlers in the transfer market. So if Eddie Howe sees something in him, then great. If he thinks there's something to work with, fantastic.
Who does that remind you of? decent, half decent in a last-ditch tackle, half decent in the air, superb on the ball, can strike from distance. Wonder who that reminds us of.
I know. I seen
that
it.
was-
I seen the sorry, Pete. I seen his goal, and I was like, that's a Fabian Schär goal if ever I've seen one. Although I didn't get to see much of his passing range, so obviously Fabian Schär is renowned for his passing range, and I didn't see it. So I'm assuming he's got that in his locker, because if we're looking for someone who's very similar to Fabian Schär, then he would literally tick every box if we were looking for a Fabian Schär replacement.
Well, look, and that's effectively what you'd be getting. And this is the thing, if you're looking at him as a player, he is a very good defender for what you're getting from him. You're not getting the elite level defender, but what you're getting is the things that he's good at. He's very good at. So his duels and his tackles are very, very good. His ability on the ball, for me, is superb. And you don't have to take my word for it. It's there in the data. I've watched him a couple of times, and like you said, Lee's watched him a lot more than me, so he's got a better opinion of him than I have, and he'll definitely come back on. But as you can see, hopefully on the screen, you can see just a very standard overview: passes attempted, passes completion. So to have that level of pass completion over 365 days. And lots of football being played, you can tell he's very, very good on the ball. Successful take-ons, someone that likes to carry the ball, progressive passes, tackles, interceptions, reminds you very much of Fabian Schär. And you look at that in terms of his passing range and his passing ability, it is outstanding. And that's why he's an Argentinian international. That's why he's seen as a very, very good defender, because he does the things that he's good at very, very well. And that, for me, is why I think Newcastle United would be looking at him for that ability. And this goes back to the point. I asked you boys the question a while back. No, I didn't ask you the question, but we were talking about it. And a lot of people have said, we want someone that's got rapid pace. We're lacking pace in the team. And I'm saying, okay, if that's what we're looking for, that's great. But what is Eddie Howe looking for? We have no idea. Eddie Howe might be looking for someone with absolute rapid pace that can cover the likes of Botman and Shaw and Byrne, and that's fine. But if he does go for someone like this, what he is actually going for is a Shaw replacement, a Shaw upgrade. For me, 26 years old, great age. I think that's a really good age for a centre-back. 5-6 years can be playing at a top elite level, potentially. But you can look at, live ball passes completed, take-ons are very, very high. He is very much the same mold as Fabian Schär. His tackling ability in the defensive third, the mid third, and the attacking third is very, very good. We've seen what Fabian Schär can do playing in a more advanced role. The block that he did in the semi-final second leg against Arsenal, which then Gordon went on to score, is because his ability to press, his touches. He likes to have the ball at his feet. He can carry the ball at great distances, as I'm showing you there. He is the guy that you would want to come in
Pete,
if you wanted to have a Shaw replacement.
Just to add in, mate, we've been linked with James Trafford, who we know equally is very, very good with the ball at his feet. If we're looking to change the way we play, you're right in the sense that we're not blessed with pace in the centre of defence. But that's why we've got Lewis Hall, and that's why we've got Tino Livramento. And it's almost as if we were to bring in a player who's very comfortable on the ball, very good at passing the ball, is it not about getting the ball out? If you can get the ball out to the relevant people, you could have the quickest player on the planet, but if you can't pass the ball and get the ball out to your midfield and make those accurate passes, that's not necessarily what we're looking for. If we're now going to be a bit of a comfortable in possession team, building up from the back, you're going to want someone who's bloody good on the ball, and maybe you supplement your pace. If you want your pace and somebody who's very good on the ball, you're getting someone like a Dean Huijsen, aren't you? But that's going to be very difficult to get because other clubs will be thinking the same thing. But if you go out, it feels almost a bit like Moneyball. If any of you seen the film Moneyball, and they focus in on certain attributes, and they'd be like, yeah, he's got a dodgy knee, but he's brilliant at this. and you go, well, and he'll only cost you X amount. So you go for that player, and it's about fitting in the right players for the perfect overall picture. You're not going to have 11 super fit athletes who are all rapid pace, because it won't necessarily work. Whereas if you've got a nice balance and you've got players who are very good at this, but maybe lack a little bit in that, but because you've got the balance elsewhere, it makes the team overall more effective. And maybe that's what this signing is, Pete.
You look at, go on, Naz, go on.
Just another point on Leonardo Bellerini. He came from Boca Juniors to Borussia Dortmund. It didn't work out at Borussia Dortmund, but there's another player at Newcastle where it didn't work out at Borussia Dortmund, Alexander Isak, in around the same time ish as well. Maybe they're just sliding doors around the same time, but who knows?
Maybe they'll do an Instagram video soon.
Maybe.
And this is the thing, like, not every player works out to every club. Not every player does. Like, some players are successful and some players are not. There's a point in the chat I need to come back to, because I think it's wild what some people are saying. But like with him, you know, everything you've just kind of explained and talked about, Chris. Like, you look at Fabian Schär. Fabian Schär's been massively successful in the Premier League. He's not the fastest. He's not the greatest in the air, but he's damn good on the ball. He's damn good at progressing passes. He's had his odd off games, but the lad's, 33, 34 years old. You're going to get that now and again. But he's damn good with the ball at his feet. He's damn good at pressing and actually uses every ounce of his energy, and he puts his body on the line every single game. That's what this guy does. So it all depends on what Newcastle United want. I'm not saying, go get that guy right now. What I'm saying is, if he came in, I'd be going, I think that's an excellent deal, especially if we got him to 35 million. I'd be thinking, we've actually got a good deal for a player that can slot right into this defensive line, will improve the line of age in the team. Not only that, is his ability on the ball will be excellent and exactly what we need. And you touched on James Trafford as well being added to that in terms of possession football, which is where we need to be. We need to be better in possession if we want to progress as a team. You know, we are excellent as a counter-attacking team, but breaking down low blocks, still got work to do. Fulham will tell you that. West Ham will tell you that. Bournemouth will tell you that. You know, Everton will tell you that. Teams that sit in, you need players that can play with the ball, comfortable in possession, won't be over the top, sort of like panicky with the ball and just trying to do all different types of things and give the ball away and get stuck and costed the other way. We want players that are calm, collected, patient, can keep the ball ticking in areas, find that eye of the needle pass, which he can do as well. His ability in the final third of playing final third balls is just as good as his short-term passing. You've got a player there that could actually work. He might not be everyone's go-to because he's not a name that we thought about, but actually, when has it ever been big name? Eddie Howe,
and making them better than what they are.
Tonali's
if Eddie wants them, we should all want them.
Exactly.
Let's see.
We don't always sign the big name players. We sign players that are very useful to the system that Eddie Howe wants to play. And if he signs Leonardo Bellerini, he is going to be a player that will fit the style that we currently play really, really well. But let's wait and see on that, because it's just one player linked. We've had a look at him. We can see where the positives are. And let's see if Newcastle back that up with a potential bid. But I just wanted to throw it out. Just one last thing before we move on, because it's not the only centre-back that Newcastle United have been linked with. That was just a data stat. So you can see the pink is Bellerini and the blue is Fabian Schär in terms of passes, forward passes, progressive passes, defensive actions, defensive duels, aerial ability, and progressive carries this season. That's for both players. So you can see that they are like very similar in areas with carries, progressive passes, but you can see in the forward passes and the duels, the aerials, the things that he has been considered not great at, he's outperforming Fabian Schär.
Oh. And do you know what's interesting about that, Pete? And it kind of proves the point as to what you've just been saying. let's say we didn't have Fabian Schär, and he wasn't a Newcastle United player, and let's pretend he's not 33. If we pulled up the stats for Fabian Schär, we'd look at that and go, "Oh God, I'm not sure about that." I don't know whether we'd want to sign him.
Yeah.
But doesn't that prove the point that he is? We know what Fabian Schär brings to this team. We know what he brings to this team, and that image there probably doesn't do Fabian Schär justice. So it just proves the point that for the right player with the right technical abilities, or what they've got in their locker, they can bring something to this team.
Yeah,
and it's also then the points that you need both the stats and the eye test to make a decision on a player, not just one.
absolutely. It's all right.
That's Chris.
I don't know where Chris has gone, but
No,
Mrs. was just telling me some very positive news with her. Very, very happy. She's very
breaking news.
Breaking news in the Davey household, that's for sure. Great news. Very, very happy to hear. Finally. But yeah. So that's Leonardo Balerdi. Let's see what happens.
Got the brandy back in stock. That's what it was. Brandy's back in stock.
No, I wish. Next Friday will be, because we're finishing for the summer, so it will be back in stock. That's for sure. Another player that's been linked with Newcastle United. You haven't missed anything, Christian. Don't worry. We're just moving on to the next player. Is Edmund Tapsoba, a player that we were linked with last summer with a potential bid. Newcastle apparently have launched through Get Football News Germany a bid to potentially sign Tapsoba at around 50 million. Other links as well. I did get this from NUFC Gallagher, because they touched on this in the Daily Mail, that they'd reported on this, that Newcastle were potentially linked with a move for him as well. Interesting one. I don't really know too much about this. It's just one. This is a football show. This is a football discussion. Excuse me. We don't talk about these things on here. But yeah, very happy. Very happy. We'll leave it there. We'll let your imagination run wild. But boys, Edmund Tapsoba or this man, because apparently he's allowed to leave this summer and potentially be sold. Antonio Silva. So it is reported, multiple sources in Portugal are saying that Antonio Silva is available. No clubs have moved for him yet. Benfica are ready to cash in, as they feel they can cope without the 21-year-old next season. I'd still like Antonio Silva. I'm a fan. I do like him. But Edmund Tapsoba is also a very, very good centre-back. Boys, if you had to choose, who are you going for? Who are you going for? We're not talking about prices here. We're talking about players.
I'm going for Osman Diomande if I have to choose between them. No, okay, because
he wasn't on the list. He wasn't on the list.
There's a link there. Because back 3 years ago, I was talking about Antonio Silva, and then I saw Osman Diomande, and I go, forget him. I want this guy. And it still talks of on his way to well, Chris is gone again. Maybe he is off on a holiday with an Everton fan. They see him twerking now later on. You never know. Yeah, and then so it looks like the talk is that he's going to Crystal Palace. So let's see how that plays out. But on Tapsoba, yeah, look, I haven't watched him for a while, but yeah, there's like big changes at Leverkusen. Alonso's gone, Wirtz is gone. There's a bit of a movement there on players. Yeah, he's a great player. The only thing is he's going to the AFCON as well with Burkina Faso. It's where he's from. 50 million, 26-year-old, 27 in February. Big outlay. Great player though. So if we can get involved there, yes. but it seems like a high fee for a player that age as well for a centre back. I don't know. I think it's because of the AFCON. I don't know if this is one Eddie will go with. So that's why I think I'd be. Then back to Silva. He's 21 years old. He's still very, very young. Wow. Again, I've heard people say before he had a dip in last year or the year before. So I haven't seen him recently, but at that time, he looked quality. But on the fence with a lot of them really is. It's just I want to see what Eddie does here. Pete, how about you? Who are you picking?
I like Silva. I do. If it's not Scalvini, I do like Silva. And you touched on the point. And to be fair, that's gone quiet as well. Scalvini's gone quiet. I've even removed him. I put him at the top of our little thread of players that are just waiting in the wings because it has gone quiet on Scalvini. But what's really interesting about this, Daz, is that you look at the sort of the data and the stats on all these players. They're all very similar. They've all got really good sort of tackling ability. Ground jewels are very good. They're all excellent on the ball. They're all really strong on the ball. I'll just throw it really quickly because I'm going to use Silva because I do like him. I really do like him. And at 21 years old, I think it's an absolute snip. I've just jumped straight to the passing stats because the passing stats are there. It might not be as good as Balerdi's, but for a 21-year-old, which is a great age, by the way, I'm still not happy with people saying 26 is not a great age. That is an absolute disgrace that people think that 26 is absolutely a great age. It's not even in your prime in football yet, and people are questioning it. Anyway, passing stats are excellent. Short, medium, and long, in particular, long stats are a little bit better. But what you can say is that 21 years old, he's very, very comfortable with the ball at his feet. He likes to get forward. You can see the passes attempted. Passes completed, the progressive passes are there, so he likes to travel with the ball and make things happen. Goal shot and shot creation is there too, which is positive. Defensive stats are decent as well, but with Benfica being as good as they are, the defensive stats will be skewed slightly because they will dominate possession in the majority of games. But percentage of dribblers tackled is very high. Tackles in the attacking third are pretty good as well. So they are a team that likes to press high and win the ball back in high positions. So that's why those stats would be slightly higher than anywhere else. I think if it was in the Premier League and he'd had a year in the Premier League, you'd have probably seen more balanced stats with those areas because we do equally amount as much defending as we would attacking in those particular areas. But some strong stats there on Antonio Silva. He'd be my choice if you're asking me between Tapsoba and Antonio Silva. Chris, I know you've just kind of come back to us. I didn't see it because I couldn't see you on screen previously. But you're back in business. They are just some stats on Antonio Silva. Just saying that the players that we are linked with, whether it's Balerdi, whether it's Antonio Silva, whether it's Tapsoba, they've all got very good stats like this. They're all very comfortable on the ball. They all like to progress the ball. Yeah. They all like to get forward, and they've all got the ability to defend. Would Antonio Silva be your guy? Would you be happy with that investment? And boys, one question for you. In addition to that, Chris, I'll come to you first. On your thoughts on Antonio Silva, if we were to get him, would you consider that a statement signing?
You there, Chris?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Did you hear my question?
Yeah.
Did you hear my question? Can you hear me?
No, I didn't hear your question.
Oh, okay. So I was wondering why it was just dead silence for a second. I was thinking, can you hear me now? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now, mate. Yeah.
Okay. So my question is your thoughts on Antonio Silva as a player, but if we did go and sign Antonio Silva, do you think that would be considered a statement signing for Newcastle United?
Yeah, I do. Antonio Silva has long been regarded as one of the top centre backs in Europe. I think, albeit he's been playing obviously in the Portuguese league, and nobody's actually tried to tempt him out. I think he's at Sporting Lisbon, isn't he? But no one's actually tried to tempt him out of his club.
Benfica.
Oh, Benfica. Sorry, Benfica.
Yeah, Diamande.
No one's actually. I'm thinking Diamande, yeah. No, but he has been linked with he's been linked with big moves in the past, hasn't he? Like he's been linked with the likes of City. I think he was also linked with Bayern at one point. So he's been linked with really, really big moves. But yeah, I 100% I would see it as a statement signing. I mean, again, I'm not going to sit here and tell you all that I watch the Portuguese league on a weekly basis because I don't. But obviously I've seen bits of him in Champions League games and stuff like that. And he does look really, really impressive. I think of the three. So you mentioned just before I left before. I think you mentioned an option of Belletti, Tapsoba, or Antonio Silva. I think that for me the safest bet would be Tapsoba, but maybe I'm saying that because obviously I've seen a lot more of Tapsoba, and obviously he's playing in a you could say a better league in the Bundesliga. So my safety bet would probably be Tapsoba, but I do think that Antonio Silva has got, some real good qualities. And I think that he is a player, if we were to sign him, I'd be very excited by him because he has come with a fantastic reputation in previous years. And I would be intrigued to see him in a Newcastle shirt purely because he's got this fantastic reputation. And I think, if Eddie Howe was working with him and he's in the Premier League, I think it'd be exciting. So I would be very excited if we were to get Antonio Silva.
I think BT. I'm sorry, Daz, to just fill the chat. I think you're back there actually. I think just from this BT. His speed, physicality, and aerial abilities make him a versatile option in defence. However, his occasional positioning lapses and vulnerability against top attackers are areas to be mindful of. But you can't. That's what I would expect of a 21-year-old, though. A 21-year-old centre back, regardless of what level, they're still learning the game. And you do expect them to have those little moments. But as we always say, when you've got someone like Eddie Howe that's going to be working with him day in, day out, he is going to improve on those areas. He is going to improve those little lapses of concentration. He is going to improve against the best players because he'll be up against them week in, week out in the Premier League. It's the best league in the world for that reason. And as well, being back in the Champions League, playing in the Champions League, he's got that experience. And as he gets older, he'll only get better. So I think I think it's a fair assessment, to be fair, that BT's put in there. But I think, I think with his age, you kind of it's part of the package. I would imagine for that one. But I just wanted to throw that Antonio Silva one out there. We aren't linked with him, but it's saying that he's available and there's a chance they can sign him. Surely, there's a chance that we're at the table for someone like that who. It's been known that we've been linked with and watched quite a bit. So let's wait and see on that one, boys.
I don't understand though, and people shoot me down on this, but if we're looking at Silva, why are we not looking at Ousmane Diamande? That's what I don't get. But we'll see.
No, it's a good question. Why might we be looking at Antonio Silva and not Ousmane Diamande? What could be the potential reasons? I'll take that off the screen. Sorry. What could be the reasons for it in your mind? That's because you asked the question, so I'll ask it.
Well, okay. Silva is from Portugal. Diamande is from, I think, it's Ivory Coast.
Yes, I believe so.
Yeah. So okay, AFCON will come up to play a part every now and again. But yeah, look at they're obviously looking at the qualities both have of what would fit into the system where we're looking to play, because they're both young. Aaron says there that he plays in the back three. But I think they can adjust as well.
Wouldn't that be a positive though? Wouldn't that be a positive though? Because isn't that a formation that Eddie Howe's wanting to play.
Yeah, he's gone down that route on occasions, hasn't he? And he may have to in the Champions League as well, especially away from home.
What about you, Chris? Like, why would we go for someone else other than like Antonio Silva is the obvious one, other than Diamande? Because I think it's a good question and it's worth having a discussion on, just because they are like similar ages, similar makeup in terms of players. But it seems to be that we were linked with Ousmane Diamande, but it just seems to be that we're not going in for him. And it does seem that the Palace deal could potentially still happen. And to let someone of his ability go to Palace would just be a bit strange, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, particularly for the price that's being quoted, because I think they're saying about 40-45 million, aren't they? And we saw Pete. We were speaking about it a lot last season, weren't we? About the fact that Palace managed to nip in and get Maxence Lacroix for a steal of a price, because he was a player who was being linked with top moves, and then all of a sudden Palace signed him for 17 million, and everyone was like, "That's a bit odd. Why have they managed to get him for 17 million?" And you hope that the same thing isn't going to happen with Ousmane Diamande, because he's clearly a player, a bit like Silva, a bit like Tapsoba. He's acknowledged as probably one of the better centre halves in Europe. So the fact that Palace are in for him, and that we're it looks like we're not in for him. It does bring about questions, but I suppose there'll be numerous pluses and minuses for all these players, won't there? And whether or not we've been put off for whatever reason, it could be an attitude thing. It could be a bad injury. There could be a number of reasons. But I just hope. In fact, I've just popped another name in my head as well. Milenkovic. We were talking so much about Milenkovic, and all of a sudden Forest signed him. What did they get him for? Like 13 million?
Yeah, 12.
God.
Yeah.
And that. And then he's
Would you buy him for 20 now, Chris?
A lot of people's team of the year. Well, of course. Of course, but again, it's what Eddie Howe's looking for and what he wants his teams to do. I'm sure he admires.
Is he still there?
Probably Milan could be something that we'll have to see. We'll just have to see.
He's back. We lost you there for a second, Chris, but then you went into overdrive and you managed to catch up. So we.
Oh, you went into when I'm playing your voice notes, I have to put them on 1.5 speed, Chris. So just to make it, that's what you went on there.
But it's
me mates all do that as well.
You know what? I think AFCON, and it's a really interesting comment that Sophie B's put up, is that. I didn't know this until sort of last week when someone mentioned it to me. AFCON is in the middle of December till the middle of January. Normally it's January through to early February, but it's actually like right in the middle of a crazy busy month through Christmas and then the beginning of New Year. And the one thing we have to remember with that, with AFCON, is that obviously other players will be like losing out and for other teams and be going off to AFCON, but we've got to remember, boys, like we're still playing Champions League in January. Like there's 8 games now in the league phase, and so we'll be still playing Champions League games. We'll have the FA Cup that will just be added to that just at the turn of the year. We're still playing Premier League and Champions League. We benefited from Arsenal in January with all their injuries in terms of like Saka getting injured and I think Havertz got injured off the back of that, and they were having to play every 3 days because they were having to play Carabao Cup, Champions League, Carabao Cup, and on all the way through into February. That's going to be a massive period of the season where we're going to need every player available, and to lose players to AFCON. I just don't think it's viable this summer to be, with all due respect, to be buying players from African countries that are in AFCON, because losing those players is going to massively detrimental to your squad. It's going to be crazy. Absolutely.
No, it is a fair point. Then why were we ever looking at Bueno then? Because he's going to be gone as well.
Well, going back to the point that we never actually went in for Brian.
No.
He was our top target, but before we even got round the table for him, he had already made his mind up about Man United. So we never got to that point of having that conversation. So, but hey, we haven't got him now, so we don't have to worry about it. Chris, how are your red mates with this news when you put it into your group chat? Newcastle are set to pull off a coup with signing Isaac Moran, 16-year-old. He turned down a Liverpool contract to sign for the black and white Mags. Already represented England at youth level, seen as a very much an exciting player for the future. A captain as well, so we've got those leadership skills at that level. Are they trying to play it down, or are they crying any tears? How are the Reds feeling at this one?
Oh, like they were shameless. You know, they were being sarcastic, like, oh no, Gutters, we've lost him. He's going to be a world beater. That was the kind of responses I was getting. Albeit to the fact that they, I think deep down it was probably annoying for them because nobody wants to see their top talents leave. We saw it. Someone put it in the chat there, Genie. Revenge for Bobby Clark. It's never nice when one of your top youngsters joins a rival club. So they were trying to paper over it and say, oh, so what? We're Liverpool. You know what I mean? It was one of those responses. I like to try and wind them up, but yeah, unfortunately, it didn't provoke much response other than, oh well, what a shame. He's going to be wonderful. But yeah, deep down, I reckon it probably wound them up a little bit because, as I say, nobody wants to lose top talent, do they?
Not at all. But look, and another exciting one onto the conveyor belt that we'll keep an eye on. Around that age bracket, 15, 16, 17, we seem to be signing some exciting players. So when they, in 2 or 3 years' time, looking at that under 21s level, like we should be having some exciting players come through that should be knocking the door down a little bit, like how Lewis Miley was the other season. So fingers crossed.
Yeah, and we're going to have enough games this year then that they could actually get a run out, like as you said, Miley did in our last Champions League season. But yeah, he has to start bringing a few of them through now. Like the Alfie Harrison one as well, and that need to see him do something as well this season. And interesting to see what happens at Murphy, my friend Alex Murphy. See where does he go out and loan again, or does he get some game time or get some minutes pre-season? We'll see.
Well, I was going to say, is he going to be with the first team squad pre-season? That'll be I think our first observations there. But that will be interesting. Leo Shahar, the right back, who Newcastle did a piece on. They had a video on. A really, really interesting watch there, and the fact that they've invested so much time in him to do that says that they see him as a future right back for Newcastle United. So yeah, you're absolutely right, Daz. I'd look depending on the draw that we get in the Carabao Cup. Obviously, we go into the next round. I think we come in at round 3 because we're in the Champions League. I would love us to get a favourable draw and be able to bring someone like him off the bench. That'd be really, really nice to kind of give him his first run out in a game like that. And you're right that this will be part of our build up now in the next 5 years, bringing these players through as they get to 18, 19, and giving them an opportunity to show what they're all about. Boys, there's a couple of bits I was going to go to, but they're just minor bits, so we'll leave it for now. But I'm mindful there are some questions in the chat. People put some questions in and some comments. We might as well go to some of those before we start to wrap, boys.
Yeah, let's go to this. I'm just going to random order here. I'm just going to click on one that jumps up at me. Jota, because my Liverpool friend as well said, I was talking about Jota today. Of course, Harvey Elliott is the other one. But what do you think of Diego Jota to Newcastle boys? I think he's like 28.
Go on, Chris.
Do you know what? I was shocked. I think it was 12, 18 months ago when Diogo Jota all of a sudden was like the best thing since sliced bread. And there was people saying, I think actually Carragher may have said it, that Diogo Jota, or he was suggesting that Diogo Jota was a better finisher than the likes of Bobby Fowler, which I just thought was mental. Like I was so shocked to see that and read that. I think Diogo Jota, sadly, my personal opinion is that I think injuries have caught up with him. I think that he's a player who, we saw it with Wayne Rooney, a player who is kind of becoming old before the time, if that makes sense. Like you mentioned there, Daz, about him being 28. To me, in my head, Diogo Jota looks and feels like a 32, 33-year-old who's at the end of his career. That's how it feels. But the fact he's only 28 is a little bit concerning because the drop-off has been so significant. Like 12, 18 months ago, Diogo Jota, everyone was saying, oh my God, how good is he? He's brilliant. He scores goals for Liverpool. Now, Diogo Jota, like, I know he's had his injury troubles, don't get me wrong, but even when he's come into the team, he's come back from his injuries, he looks a shadow of his former self. He looks a little bit like Callum Wilson did at the back end of the season, where you're going, he's done. He's done. And I think that's why you're seeing Diogo Jota being linked with a move away. And Liverpool fans aren't as upset over it. I think if you'd said this some time ago, they'd go, oh, you can't get rid of Jota, he's brilliant. Now you're seeing Diogo Jota, like, you know, coming on for the odd appearance, and like the likes of Gakpo, the likes of Nunes are ahead of Diogo Jota. And that's quite sad to see, really, because I think in his pomp, Diogo Jota was a far better player. For me, I would stay clear of him. I'm not suggesting he's not a good player anymore, but he just doesn't fit the profile that we're looking for. And to me, a Diogo Jota signing is someone who, for want of a better phrase, you sign to basically run into the ground. You're not going to make any money on Diogo Jota. So if we was to sign Diogo Jota for 30, 35 million, which is what I assume Liverpool would want for them, you're not going to get any kind of healthy return on Diogo Jota. You're signing him to basically play for the last 2, 3, 4 years, however long he's got, and then he will be released. And I don't think Newcastle are in that place at the moment. I think Newcastle are looking to bring in players around the age of 20 to 26, maybe. I'm saying 26 now because of the link with Berardi. I think that
26 is a great age. That's what I'm doing.
Great age. Yeah, great age. Yeah, great age. And I just think that players who are like 27, 28, 29 upwards, I think they're players who come in for the here and now, but you're not going to expect to make any money on them. Whereas if you go a few years younger, you sign a 24-year-old, he plays fantastically well. He's 26. All of a sudden, if he's absolutely brilliant, you're making a significant profit on him. Diogo Jota comes in, has a really good season. You might get your money back, maybe, in a couple of years, but you'd be very fortunate to. So for me, I just don't think Newcastle are interested in Diogo Jota and his wages as well. I just don't see it. I just don't see it.
Not a chance for me. Not a chance. Like I'm very wary of paying money to any of the top 6 for players that they actually want to get rid of. For me, Liverpool know they have to get rid of him this season, otherwise his value is going to plummet. Because I'm with you. I'm exactly the same. I've watched him this season. When I saw that he was coming back, I thought, oh, flipping hell, they're going to be potent up front now. He's going to be putting finishes away, and he's been missing chances. He's been out of position, and he's been all over the place, and he just doesn't look like he's got the intense press that he used to have. And I just think they know they need to get rid of him now this summer, because they want what 40, 45 million for him now. They know he's not going to have a great season next season, and then they'll be having to let him go for like 20, like if they're lucky. And that's the thing. Yeah. And I don't want us to be the ones that go and cash in for someone like him, right? When he's not going to be any good. You're buying the name, not the player, is what I would say.
Exactly.
And that's just the reality. However, if I'm gonna go to Liverpool, I'm not massive on going to rival teams and taking players. If I'm going to go to Liverpool, I'm going and I'm taking. If I'm going to take anyone that they don't want to get rid of, I'm taking someone like Harvey Elliott, right? Because even though he's up for sale, they don't actually want to get rid of him. He wants to leave because he wants more games. That's his decision, not necessarily the club. So you don't mind taking a player like that because actually he's got things to improve on. Another example, Man City. Yeah, absolutely. They need a striker. They'll pay stupid money, but they've got to sell a player first. Because West Ham are sell to buy right now. They have to sell Kudus to be able to sign anybody. Another example, Man City. I'm taking Oscar Bob all day long.
Him all day, bring him on
all day long. He doesn't. They don't want to lose him, but with the money they've invested in that team and the players that they now have available to them, and Ryan Cherky being added to that position, he's not going to play much football. Could he be the Cole Palmer from a couple of years ago this season? You get him; he's now fit and firing, ready after a bad injury that he was out for a chunk of the season. But if you got him now, just like we did with Tino Livramento, coming back after an injury, hungry and ready to prove themselves, if you've got him now, and you probably get him for a decent price as well. That's the type of player I want to take out of those top teams, not a Jota. I want to take an Oscar Bob. I want to take a Harvey Elliott. That's the type of player I want to be seeing coming out of the club.
Agree with everything you said there. The only thing is, right, if it was a choice for like 20 million for Jota, 25 million, instead of Callum Wilson, another contract that's been bandied about on Twitter, I don't believe it. Surely, boys, this can't happen. We can't be giving Callum Wilson another contract of any description.
Go on, Chris.
No.
What are your thoughts on that?
My only concern, and maybe this is such a concern because I'm looking at the pace and the speed of our transfer window. My only concern is if we lose, a Callum Wilson, John Muddy, I'm not concerned over because we've got about 64 goalkeepers, so that's fine. But if you lose a Callum Wilson, you need to bring in a backup striker. You then need to. If somebody told me that Callum Wilson's going to sign a new contract for a year and he's going to be third choice striker, I could live with that. That'd be fine. But my only concern is if Callum Wilson signs a 1-year deal and he ends up being, we don't need a striker, we've got Callum Wilson. That is not an option. It's really not an option. My gut tells me that I don't think he'll sign a new deal. I do think we'll move on from him. But this is Newcastle United, isn't it? This is Newcastle United. We know how loyal Eddie Howe is to his players. We know that on his day, Callum Wilson is a brilliant player. But the trouble is we don't really see those days anymore, and he's injured a hell of a lot. For me, it's time for Wilson to move on. Logan Lee J has just put that in the chat. Is that true?
It was. I think it was said in Mark Douglas's piece.
Right.
Okay. But look, I'm just going to say it out here now. Callum Wilson's gone. I don't think he's been re-signed. I think people are jumping on because on the squad thing on the website, him and Target were removed, and then later on in the evening they were put back on. Now I think
he meant Ruddy.
Ruddy, not
Target had no picture. Yeah.
Target had no picture. Yeah.
He hasn't been in the jersey long enough to take a picture of him.
Which is probably that's probably more telling than anything else. The fact that he's been at the club 3 years and still not got he hasn't got a picture on. But look, the reality is, for me, my reality is that Callum Wilson's gone. He's not coming back. Ultimately, we will find out in about 3-4 days' time when the boys return from pre-season, because we'll know if he walks through the door on the first day of pre-season, he's been given a new deal. But if he doesn't, then he's been released. And I think even the club are aware, as much as the club love him and the players love him, they know they need to move on from him. And I think we will, and I think we'll get the players in that we needed to. You know what, boys? The fact that it the fact that we went so hard for Pedro for as long as we did tells me that they don't want Callum Wilson to stay, that they're looking for a genuine alternative. That's just my opinion on that. But that's a point that I've got in the chat. That was going to be a discussion point for tonight.
But
that's very
interesting. Keith Downey says 125.
Yeah. That's so what was it? So Luke Ed was first brought up the budget conversation. He said 125. Keith Downey also said 125 on his video. But the
Kim
point
McGuire,
to make
150 to 200. I know. I was looking,
But the point that I'll say about Mark Douglas's piece is that he almost gives the impression that Newcastle could go to that figure if they wanted to. Now, Newcastle could go to that figure and probably go beyond that figure. I think Newcastle could spend 200 million. I actually think Kieran Maguire is absolutely spot on. But Newcastle United will be thinking of the January window. Newcastle United will be thinking beyond this summer. And so they'll want to keep some money aside, because if we're going in, you look at Aston Villa, for example. Aston Villa were doing well in the Champions League, qualified, and were then going to attack the second phase of the season. So what did they do? They went and got Asensio. They went and got Marlon. They went and got Rashford. And they paid a lot of money out doing it. But they had the money there to do it through investment of Duran to be able to invest in the second half of the season. We want to know that we've got money there to be able to do it. That's my in the mid part of the season. If a player is unhappy at another club, a good player mind, and they become available in January, Newcastle United want to be knowing that they're ready to take that player and get that player and invest him into the squad. That's my thinking in it. So we'll see.
And I think you want to be in a position, don't you? You want to be in a position where you can, say an opportunity presents itself in January. You don't want to then get to January and go, oh, well, we could have signed this player, but we spent too much in the summer. So you always want that backup, don't you? And we've probably been stung with that in the past, where a player becomes available who maybe we didn't think would become available, but we've spent too much previously. I think it's really positive that they're talking about a figure of anywhere between 150 and 175 before player trading. I think that's great. And that really gives me a little bit more optimism in the sense that I do expect there to be player trading. I don't see a summer where we bring in 4 or 5 players and nobody leaves. And when I say nobody leaves, I know there's a likelihood Callum Wilson will leave and there's a likelihood John Ruddy will leave. But I do firmly believe that, the likes of Longstaff, the likes of Willock, the likes of Target, I do think at least 2 of those will move on. And I also, which we've said this ourselves, boys, haven't we? I still believe there'll be one player who is sold this summer who we weren't expecting. And that's not me being all cryptic or whatever. It's just that when you always, we look back on previous squad games we've done, we look back on previous shows, and then a player leaves and we go, bloody hell, I didn't see that coming. I didn't think that was going to happen. It's very rare that you get to it. Yeah, exactly. It's very rare you get to an end of a transfer window and you go, yeah, I knew all them would go. I knew they'd leave. There's always one player, if not more, where you go, bloody hell, I did not think they were going to leave. When we did our squad game, we said that we wanted to keep them. So I do think there'll be at least 3 outgoings, and I'm not talking about Ruddy or Wilson.
Well, a few more questions as we wrap up. David Davidson says, "Hey lads, do you think with money limited, do you think Eddie will use Asula in his second year and keep the money then for the right winger, the goalkeeper, and the right centre back first?"
I think it's hard to tell right now. Personally, I think a decision on Will Asula will be made at the end of August. I think he'll be here at the beginning of the season. I think he'll have a full preseason with us. I think Will Asula being at Newcastle or not will be determined on our business. So if we get our business right and we get the players in that we want, I do feel like Will Asula will go on loan for the season at a low-end Premier League club or top-end Championship club. I genuinely do think that would be the best thing for his development, to be a Newcastle player in the future. But if we don't get what we need, I think Willisula will stay, and he'll be the guy. He'll be the guy that will be, third choice, for example, going into next season. Which is okay because we'll be squad padding and we'll have loads of players available. But in terms of his development, what is he now? 23. Like he's not like he's getting older now. He's not he's not a young gun. He's not a Louis Miley at 18, 19. He's significantly older than him now in terms of development, and he should be further along in his game. So I do think that decision will be made end of August, towards the end of the window.
Boys, sorry, I'm going to cut in here. I just saw this one and got really excited about it because this is the player I was talking about in our striker show, one of the first Fully Loaded transfer shows. Samu, I can't pronounce his name. Please pronounce it.
Agahoa.
Yeah,
there we go.
And the only reason I felt confident saying Agahoa is because on was it FIFA or no, it was Champ Man. There used to be a player who was similar spelling of that name, but it was an A. Yeah, Agahoa.
Yeah,
brilliant player. But it wasn't him.
Yeah, I'm glad it would be because it'd be an Obafemi Martins situation again because it'd be like 40 like that. But I did have this and I didn't use it. But Newcastle have been linked with Samu Agahoa, 21-year-old, been in Portugal in one season and impressed with 27 goals. But it did say Porto would demand 100 million euros.
Jesus.
What's that, Foxy?
It's that. I'll be honest with you. Like, if you're going to spend that money on a striker, you're probably going to end up getting Gokares or Enekatika.
And it'd be cheaper. Yeah,
and again, both of them will be cheaper. So that last part of it, I mean, 442, pretty decent in terms of their reporting. And I know it's coming from a different source, but 100 million euros for him,
yeah,
bit wild. That bit wild. But yeah,
it could be a nice smoke screen. But yeah,
it would be a great smoke.
Let's see.
Just imagine if we signed. If we just went, you know what, fuck this. Let's just get Victor Gokares in. And we were, you know what?
You Arsenal fans in the chat.
This is what this window's done to us now. We haven't got a sign in, so we're in dreamland. We're in dreamland. But
yeah, because there's a lot.
Oh, sorry, I was going to say, imagine we got Gokares and Elanga. It'd just be a Swedish front line.
Yeah. Swedish mafia.
Oh, we said that before. Yeah. Swedish house smasher. Because like there's talk of Villa selling Watkins and then Villa going in for this stuff. So I don't know. Yeah, let's see how it plays out. See this the chore up and thing else. Okay, we're gonna get one more question then, boys, and then we'll wrap up.
Just before the question, Daz, can we make sure we get those likes? I think we need 40 likes to hit 200. We've got 350 in the chat. Great to have you in here. Loving the content, loving the conversation and the questions. But just make sure you get those likes in, people. 34 away. Sorry, Sophie. 34 away. Smash those likes. Get it in. Let's get this to 200 before we wrap. Sorry, Daz, for taking that.
No, you're great. Last question. So let's go with this one. With Brighton signing a centre half today, will we possibly go back for their centre half, as in Van Heck? Like, we didn't get Pedro, so we said we'd never get the two of them out of Brighton. But will he end up at Chelsea as well? Everyone from Brighton always ends up at Chelsea.
No one thought that we would have Van Heck and Pedro in the same team signing for Newcastle, which was valid point, seeing as they had the bust up.
Yeah,
don't have that issue anymore. Pedro's gone to Chelsea, so therefore, who's to say Newcastle don't invest? Like, this is the great thing, is that we've been linked. This is why I get excited all the time when we hear a new link of a player, because they're all actually such good players. Like, I think any one of those players that we've talked about, Diamande, Antonio Silva, Van Heck,
Tapsoba,
Bellerdi as well. Those 5 centre backs. I think if any one of those came into this team, I think Newcastle would be really happy with that with that business. Any one of those come in, Newcastle, the club and the manager would be really happy with any one of those 5 coming through because they're good players. We are linked now with very good players. We're shopping in a difficult market, but a good market of quality players. Really, really exciting this summer, albeit we haven't really started yet because we are linked with good players. So, yeah. Can't wait. I bet you any money, the first deal that we sign is when I'm away. I guarantee it. That week, boys, it's written in the stars.
I know.
Our big summer signing will be whilst I'm on the beach somewhere.
If it doesn't happen the week you're off, it'll be the week I'm off.
Is that after? Straight after?
The week after.
My God. Oh, come on, Eddie. Get them done now. Get them done early.
2 weeks, Eddie. Sort it out. Right, boys, that's it. Because we better start wrapping up. Oh, hang on. There was something I wanted to say. And it's linked to the let me find it. Let me play this and then I'll explain what it is. Switch back here, boys. Let me play this first. This. Right, there's a special offer from Radiator Russ. Radiator Russ, contact them at russ@theradiatorshed.com or on 077 666 04112. And Russ contacted us to tell us that there's 30% off the retail stocked rads for the whole of July. Just mention Loaded Mag to qualify. So contact Russ and he'll sort that out. And also he's asked me to mention that as we mentioned before, he's sponsoring Hayden United FC under 8 girls, and they are looking for more budding stars for the team. So get in contact. He's going to send more details through, and we can flash it up on screen. But if you're interested in getting involved there, or your family members are, just give them a shout, and they're looking for new players.
Great stuff. That's it.
Great stuff.
But that is it for tonight. So because as Nobby says, some of us have to get off early. I don't know why, but we have to get off early. But Chris doesn't know what's happening with her. He missed that.
He has no idea. But look, Nobby, to answer your question, never in doubt. Never in doubt. Never an issue in the Davey household, so don't worry about that. But just before we do leave, sorry, Dad, I'm just going to take. Can you just move the tab back?
Yeah, sure.
Hold on. Got it in? Yeah, there we go. Just wanted to plug this one more time. The nominations for the Football Content Awards are up. If you haven't already, please consider nominating Loaded Mag NUFC. It's the first time we really kind of put ourselves forward for this, but it's something that we've done, and lots of people have encouraged to do so. So if you feel like nominating us for the Football Content Awards 2025, that would be amazing, and it mean the world to us to be alongside fantastic content creators in this country. So yeah. All the details will be in descriptions and also on our socials as well. And if you check them, they've got the links where you can nominate and put us forward. So thank you very much just on that before we finish.
And we have to plug ourselves, boys, because we never do this. If you'd like to, especially if you'd like to become a sponsor of Loaded Mag in UFC. Consider it. Contact us on loadedmagnufcinfo@gmail.com or even reach out to us on socials, and we can see what can be done. Well, sure, why not? Get involved in this busy transfer window that still has to really kick off. But that's it. We will be back soon, hopefully sooner than we think. But thanks for sticking with us, and we'll see you on the next one. Bowman that's not going to Nottingham Forest or won't be twerking for anyone else is this man. Have a good one. See you soon.
Yes, sir.